Before we delve too deeply into this subject, if you didn't read the title fully, I have to remind you this is a spoiler review. But I will be clear once we get to the core story in the review itself. So the spoilers are not beginning here. You'll forgive me if I'm not the most articulate in this review, not so much from being sleep deprived from Iron Manning this novel last night, but also from the fact that I've never really done a book review of this sort before. I'm going to try to cover this in stages. This is also the first novel from this author, Jason Schmetzer, that I've read, though this is not the first novel from the Dark Age or Ilkhan era that I've gone through, which was Hunting Season by Philip Lee. As an aside, both of these take place in an overlapping area of space as well, so for me it was interesting to see how well two portrayals of the Captain General of the Free Worlds League lined up. So before covering the story, I want to talk to you about what Redemption Rights is. Redemption Rights is a Battletech novel that tries to achieve a lot of things and is largely successful at them. First, it tries to give the reader an overview of what everything is. It doesn't assume that the reader knows all of the recent events, and it doesn't assume that the readers have a full in-depth history of the Inner Sphere or the sDragoons themselves. It achieves this mostly in a way that isn't negative or noticeable. I say this mostly because no one is perfect, and in one or two scenes it came away as a bit obvious. But this is fine, because this novel feels like much more of an entry into a franchise for new people than for veterans necessarily, though veterans will enjoy it as well. If you want to know about this era, and about the Wolf Empire and the sDragoons, it will give you all the necessary pieces to put the picture together for you. For new readers especially, this is great. Second, this, to me, feels like a novel that is trying to clean up prior stories and things which have happened in source books and other novels. Some of the audience have been critical of how some of the characters or factions have behaved in the past. This novel definitely aims to clear up those portrayals in many instances, or fix them. Again, much like the previous point, this does a good job in doing it, and for the most part, it doesn't feel ham-fisted. My favorite scenes in the novel pertain to this, and we'll get into those later once we begin to review the story and the characters themselves. Third, Redemption Rights is trying to tell a story in a new age, and is building up on the sDragoons, their motives, and reintroducing them with familiar elements, but on a new path. I personally believe these are the three main points of this book, and it does all of them in a solid fashion. I enjoyed the novel from start to finish. There are multiple secondary characters in this book, but I would say there are 4 main characters in the story. I will try to summarize what they are here in the best way I can. Major Haya Kiyomasa. I believe I got her surname correct. She's mostly referred to as Haya in the story. She pilots a Spartan C, which is an assault mech. I would argue more than any other character in the story, she's the main protagonist, though her counterpart Kincaid comes close. She has a strong will to get things done, prove herself, and get revenge on the Wolf Empire, much like her other cohorts. She's also the character we'll see in the most combat during the book, as she's more the field commander versus Kincaid, who is the man handling the wolves themselves, and how to strategically manage their situation as the new leader. Much of her character and story is understood how she handles her troops around her and her mech as she grows to know her fellow commanders and underlings, as well as seeing people around her suffering throughout the book, including herself, at least in my observations. Colonel Henry Hack Kincaid is the other main protagonist, a man who has inherited the responsibility of leadership and has accepted the quest for vengeance. Hack is forced into a series of decisions he doesn't want to make, but is possessed by his mission to save his people and visit revenge upon the Wolf Empire. I enjoyed his scenes the most in the book, as I tend to gravitate towards politics and people in the book more than the flash of autocannon fire. Hack essentially has to play the Game of Thrones in all of this. And he learns to play it very well, especially with his grand plan by the end of the story. Star Colonel Othar. Another man with an unenviable job. He is left to hold together an empire deprived of supplies and of soldiers. A warrior who never made a great name for himself as one would want in the clans. He learns first of the fall of Terra and of the Ill Clan, and then realizes his position, which is that of a man left holding the bag. He has a great journey as a character, and makes mostly right calls, even if difficult ones, for his position. He is a pragmatic man, especially for a clanner, as he displays what matters most to him. Unfortunately for Othar, who is by no means an incompetent character, he's just placed in a terrible situation. Even though he's, in my opinion, the primary antagonist, and a part of a heinous state like the Wolf Empire, you do empathize with him almost as much as you do Hack, given his circumstances. Star Captain Radu, I would argue this is the final main character, the assistant to Othar, a recent trialed clan warrior and one who is extremely arrogant and rigid in his understanding of the clans and how they should act. He is a constant voice bouncing off of Othar, trying to direct him down a path many clanners would demand they go down, and their clashes are throughout the book. His arrogance doesn't stop him from learning, but he has many hard lessons throughout the book, as well as wake-up calls to the realities that the Wolf Empire faces. The spoilers begin here. So what happened? I don't want to cover everything, just what you need to know, so I may miss some details in this. The story begins with the aftermath of the Wolf Dragoons being betrayed by Clan Wolf after the Battle of Terra. 8 in 10 of the unit were killed. This was primarily from 2 objectives. 1, stopping Jade Falcon from becoming the Ill Clan, and 2, being welcomed back as brothers by Clan Wolf. When they were used as cannon fodder and then discarded with only 30 pieces of silver to show for it, they would limp back home to their remaining comrades. The Wolf Dragoons, who had not joined them in battle, were not impressed. Hack Kincaid, being the leader of them, has the previous leadership arrested and court-martialed almost immediately. The families and friends of those who died are demanding justice, and Kincaid will give it to them. The previous leader, General Thomas Brubaker, tries to argue for what he did, but eventually realizes the futility of what had happened. Beaten by the events, and realizing the gravity of his mistake, after the private meeting with Hack, he would be heavily convinced to do the right thing, and proceeded to evacuate his life early. A single round going off to signify it. Colonel Nicholas Cruz, the main instigator and ringleader left alive who had convinced the Wolves to go to Terra to fight under the banner of Clan Wolf, would be confronted after his trial by Hack as well. The two argued before Cruz is informed that he would be killed by firing squad. Spoilers, he is. Mariota Karensky, a fanatic who helped convince the Wolves to side with Clan Wolf and is a Clan Wolf warrior, would be captured as well. Though he wouldn't be court-martialed, his fate would be a grim one, but we'll touch on that later. Multiple others also receive sentences during this, but this is just the business end of things inside of the Dragoons as they recover. During all of this, Kincaid also rallies the troops and announces that the Dragoons are now at war with the Wolf Empire, and they were going to make them pay. The Dragoons cut a deal with the Free Worlds League for passage and taking up provincial and federal contracts, and they also attempt to push the League to declare war on the Wolf Empire. While they don't, individuals in the League are keen for a border war, which begins to spread regardless, especially as the Free World League realizes that the region is increasingly undefended. This would be upset later as their own forces, Clan Seafox, intervenes on behalf of the Wolves. Never change, Free Worlds League. The Dragoons have allies in business and intelligence across the League, as well as the Wolf Empire. They regroup and reform, and begin operations to restore their numbers and acquire their revenge. They hit clan targets to not only destroy the Wolf Empire, but to steal their mechs, equipment, and Mechwarriors, attempting to give them the option to join the Dragoons. They also liberate others who wish to be freed afterwards, and most of them are encouraged to become rebels against the Empire, especially with how badly it's treated so many of the local peoples within the former Free Worlds League. Haya rises through the ranks until she is given the opportunity to reform the Zeta Battalion, after a battle takes place that the Wolves aren't in a position to win. Zeta was meant to be the assault and heavy fighting formation of the sDragoons, and reforming it, decades later, is an incredible honor for her. She picks the biggest mechs they have, and the Mechwarrior she thinks fits the unit best, before they become the tip of the spear of the sDragoons, hitting clan world after clan world on behalf of the League, taking prisoners, and adopting or recruiting them into the Dragoons, as well as more mechs and supplies. She is feeding the beast that is the Dragoons to help them in their rebuilding process. There are close calls, but she takes on everything that the crumbling Wolf Empire has and cracks it open. Hack Kincaid gives her a job from the Dragoons themselves to assault the Wolf capital of Gaina as a part of a special operation to make the war that the Wolf Dragoons have waged more personal, as well as to strike the heart of not only the Empire, but of Alaric Ward himself. From the opposing side, it's a description of desperation. Othar is constantly trying to manage a deteriorating situation. He does a lot of impressive things. He fixes the military situation in many ways, and makes compromises, but knows he has been abandoned. He raises new galaxies even, trying to hold the line, having new recruits fighting and dying for the Empire when Alaric is too busy to protect it. He strikes a deal with Clan Seafox as well, but at the expense of effectively selling the Hyperpulse Generator network in the Wolf Empire to the Seafoxes. Something he agonizes over, but saves 2 planets in the process and ignites some Free Worlds League on Free Worlds League violence in effect, as Seafox itself is a part of the FWL. Othar and his forces would be attacked by Zeta Battalion. Rallying every soldier he has on the homeworld in a desperate defense, he slowly but surely watches as the army he constructed to save the Empire is savaged and killed. Outplayed due to his rash response to the invasion, he loses dropships full of mechs and commanders he might have seen as friends, especially with the tragic end of Star Colonel Joseph, one of his peers. Zeta Battalion defeats Othar and his remaining forces, including Radu, but don't manage to score the coup de grace on him. What they do, however, is get to the heart of Genna and break into the core base of Clan Wolf. From there, the Wolf Dragoons steal the genetic descendants of Alaric Ward himself. The children of the Great Khan, in essence, will be raised as Wolf Dragoons to fight him and to kill him and his empire. As well, they are sending these genetically engineered children to all the other clans of the Inner Sphere, barring Smoke Jaguar or Jade Falcon, given they are essentially part of Clan Wolf. This would be an open disgrace and affront to Ward, especially in clan society. The Wolf Dragoons know this. For Alaric, the fight he thought he had won and the betrayal he thought only cost him 30 pieces of silver will now cost him much more. Mariota Kerensky is informed of this before the Dragoons release him. He can either run and hide and avoid the wrath of his master, or report to him with news which would provide him with extreme self-harm. It's not revealed which would happen, but his fate is to live with the extreme dishonor, or a less dishonorable, but still dishonorable, death at the hands of the man he venerates as a god, by delivering him the news that his progeny would now be given to the other clans, as well as to his enemies in the Wolves Dragoons. I loved the plot of this book. I loved the politics. I loved the fact that the two wolves were biting back at one another, and Alaric bit off perhaps more than he could chew. What a great story so far. I can't wait for more from this era. Just as an additional personal take, I should add the Wolf Empire, even from their own perspective, often seems smug or vile, even as a society. Just what they do to the planets of the former Free Worlds League and their populations are criminal, stealing both businesses and people. The Free Worlds League people who break their chains like Chandra and Cole are great reads as well. Their own opportunities, even if potentially tragic, to revenge themselves upon the people who harmed them and their families is well read and well understood. The entire time I was reading this book, I was rooting for the Dragoons as they made step after step taking their vengeance. Those 30 silver pieces were worth a lot more than Alaric realized. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to this channel. With that, I will catch you in the comments section below.